Throughout history, weather has played an important role in the success or failure of countless military operations. Perhaps the most well-known military operation where weather played a critical role was June 6, 1944, also known as D-Day. June 6, the day of the Normandy invasion, was the beginning of the Western Allied effort to liberate mainland Europe from Nazi occupation during World War II. Sunday, June 6 marks the 66th anniversary of the D-Day invasion. I will examine how the weather played a significant role in the outcome of the first day of the invasion of Normandy. According to weather and military historians, weather played an especially big part in D-Day. General Eisenhower declared that the actual selection of the day would depend on weather forecasts. The best tide and moon data from statisticians gave the military three options for the invasion: late May, June 5th or 6th, or June 17th and 18th. Given those dates, the forecasters had to predict the best conditions for the invasion. Early in 1944, the Allied commanders decided on June 5th for the invasion if the weather cooperated. Eisenhower knew that destructive storms were possible year-round in the English Channel, so with D-Day fast approaching, he included the head of the forecasting team at the highest level planning meetings. Allied commanders were debriefed daily about weather conditions. 3 teams of meteorologists had 3 briefings a day with the commanders and had to prepare forecasts for certain days, as well as 5-day forecasts, a task unheard of in the 1940s. Even trying to see 48 hours ahead were at or beyond the limits of what was possible. In 1944, weather forecasters didn't have satellite pictures, they didn't have radars, and they didn't have computer-generated forecasts, things meteorologists today take for granted. Using weather balloons and radiosondes, a new development in the late 30s, forecasters were only able to gauge wind speed and direction, as well as measure upper air patterns. Very strict minimum weather conditions were laid down as well, with different flight criteria for each arm of the operation. Bomber and fighter aircraft each required different cloud conditions. The Army needed firm, dry ground, so no heavy rains before the date. The Navy needed winds no stronger than 12 miles per hour, good visibility, and no prolonged high winds in the western approaches, just to name a few. This complicated the situation for the forecasters because the date of the assault could not be decided at a very short notice. An operation the size of this one could not be kept waiting around indefinitely for suitable weather. On the evening of June 4th, General Eisenhower and his staff met with the team of weather forecasters to discuss if the original day of the planned attacks, the 5th, was setting up weather-wise to be okay. The weather forecasters did take a look at and analyze what was happening on, and they noticed during the early portions of June, low pressure was sitting off into the northern portions of the Atlantic, high pressure to the south, and this setup was bringing some inclement weather into the English Channel, which is situated right here for the past several days. Weather forecasters also noticed that there were observations into Ireland showing that pressure was falling, and there was a cold front situated over here, and there was nothing to stop this cold front from moving in on the 5th. Another observation that the weather forecasters did notice is that there was a ship off the coast of Iceland that was recording pressure rises, meaning that there was an area of high pressure starting to build and ridging, which meant some nice weather. So the forecasters did advise General Eisenhower and his staff to postpone the attacks by 24 hours and move it into the 6th. As we take a look at a modern day reconstruction, here's what the weather forecasters were looking at. If you look at the wind fields, we do have some winds coming out of the south, winds here coming out of the west, so you can see that this cold front situated right here, and this is what brought some very inclement weather to the English Channel on the 5th, making it not ideal for the attacks. But look at this, just off to the west, they did notice that they were starting to clear out as a ridge of high pressure was building in, and this is what they noticed as we move into the 6th. That high pressure area moved into the area, skies began to clear, and it looked like a great day for the attacks, and the weather forecasters were right in telling General Eisenhower and his staff to move it to the 6th. As it turned out, the weather on the 5th was not ideal for the invasion. In fact, it would have been next to impossible to execute. The weather on the 6th was not perfect, but it was good enough to execute the operation. The skies were cloudy and the seas were choppy on the morning of the largest amphibious land invasion in modern history. By the afternoon hours of the 6th, the sun did peek its way out. Most people knew the invasion of mainland Europe was imminent, but very few knew where and when it would happen. The Germans were expecting the invasion to be when there was going to be a stretch of nice, fair weather in northern Europe. Therefore, the Nazis were not prepared to hold off the attack. Despite huge losses, approximately 10,000 men out of 200,000 on the beaches of Normandy, Eisenhower knew the weather reports may have helped save many soldiers' lives. Had they attacked on the 5th, the losses could have been much greater due to the weather. Shortly after the invasion, Eisenhower wrote to the military's chief meteorologist, quote, "I thank the gods of war we went when we did." For whether or not, I'm Matt Alto.